sponsored by Model Makers Workshop. Need parts for your next model project? Model Makers Workshop has you covered with the best aftermarket accessories around. And by Gallery, your one-stop shopping for all your airbrush needs.
Hello, this is Ken, and thank you for tuning in to the Model Building and Retirement channel. So this is going to be an update on my USACC build, 69 Camaro. So this is update number 2. The first update was the paint job of it. So I just have it loosely mocked up right now to kind of demonstrate some of the stuff that I'm going to be working on. And in this video, I'm going to show you, I got tons of aftermarket parts going into this, and it took quite a bit of modifications to get it together. So I'll take you along for the ride there and kind of show you what I had to do. It's my first venture into this many aftermarket parts. Actually, the only aftermarket parts I've done so far was wheels. And on the one kit that I did that with, I was lucky enough that they just simply fit into place. This one, not so lucky. I had to modify front, back, under the hood chassis for the engine, firewall, radiator support, radiator, quite a bit of fab. So I'll tell you what, it wasn't too long ago there was the big controversy about somebody saying that box stock builders or assemblers, if you remember that. I think that's died down a little bit, and oh my God, I'm sorry I brought it back up. But you know what? There is a difference because I was a box stock builder, and you know, to me, it's still an art, you know, to get a good paint job and make everything look good, make it look real, and file down everything and smooth it all out and decorate the interior how you're going to. You know, there's a lot of art and skill involved. So building box stock is not something to be ashamed of. You know, I did quite a bit of them, and I'll do more of them. But when you go into scratch building, which I still haven't done scratch building, but like in this case, I had to do a ton of modifications. I mean, I've got hours and hours and hours into making things fit here. So I have a whole new respect for you guys that do scratch builds and a lot of heavy modifications, because I'm excited to get in there and join the crowd and do this, but you know, it's a lot more work than I thought, but it's rewarding. It's model building. So anyways, I'm going to show you how I fit everything into there, and we'll be right back. Okay, so we're back on the USACC build. So this is build update number 2. So since the last time, which was the paint job of the model, which I'll have a link in the description for update number 1, where I painted this with the red gold color shift MCW paint. So since that, I have sanded, buffed, and polished out the body and the hood. Looks really nice. I'm really happy with that. Nice shine. Okay, then I'm really loading this up with aftermarket parts. And, you know, it's my first big venture into that. So far, the only aftermarket parts I've done at all was a set of wheels and tires. But in this case, I'm doing wheels and tires, seats, steering wheel, shifter, engine, radiator fan, as many parts as I could throw on an aftermarket. And Bryce over at Model Makers Workshop was gracious enough to send me some 3D parts to try out on this. So if you haven't seen it already, I've already painted and built out this 572 blower engine, and I'll have a link for that video in my description as well. But this took a lot of modification to fit. So I'm going to kind of show you what I had to go through to get that done. You know, my first time, and it may not be the way that it's to be done. Obviously, too, my first tip for anybody is to do this all bare plastic. I kind of painted this first because at the time Canada Post was on strike, so my delivery was held up, and I wanted to get this model painted, and I was just going to go without all the aftermarket parts. But, you know, since then, all the parts arrived, so I decided to go forward and use them. But, you know, you got to be so careful now that some painting is done. Like I've had this body on and off probably 25 times. Although now that I got everything fitting, I finally did the sand and buff. You know, I left that all till later because, you know, I figured I'd get it all scratched up. So, well, let's kind of get into a little bit of what I had to do. So I'm also doing wheels and tires, and I'll have a picture. Let's cut away and take a look at that picture. So the wheels were, you know, kind of big, and they didn't sit right in the wheel wells. You know, they were either too far forward or too far back because they were modified diameter and stuck out too far. So I had to do some modification. And the engine, if you see in the picture, sat about a half an inch too high for the hood to even close. So I had to do some extensive modification. So zoom back down into here and I'll kind of show you what I did here. But I assembled my suspension and I cut off my hubs for my wheels. We'll get into that in a minute. But I ended up having to use a Dremel. And I'll have a link for this in my description. It's a Hardell Dremel, and I used a little burling tool here and used that on low so it didn't melt the plastic too much. And I had to whittle away quite a bit to get that engine to set down in there. So I put the whole suspension in, except for the control arms. I'm going to reinstall those because they're going to clear the engine because they'll be going out to the wheel well. But I had to hog a whole bunch of plastic out of here. It would have probably almost been better to either get an aftermarket front clip or just kind of scratch a built and redo that. But I ground. And then I also had to grind down on the transmission cross member, not only to thin it out from the top, but also to bring it back a little bit better. Okay, so this is only black primer, and I'm going to smooth all this out and reprime it. Okay, so anyways, now the engine does fit in there. Nicely. Header pipe set good too, but it took a lot of work to get it to fit there. And then you see wires hanging off. Okay, so I wired my coil packs, so I'm going to have that going to a ECM here someplace. I haven't decided where that's going to go yet, so I still have that harness. When I go to the radiator, I made my own hose here, which is just a piece of tubing, and I pinned it a little bit. So once I get my radiator in, I'll be able to bend that into position and glue that into place. You know, I like the detail on the motor there, this 572 blower, but you know, it's not the most detailed engine. It looks good from the top and everything, but it actually didn't even have a starter. And it does not have a place to put a bottom radiator hose. Not so much that anybody would really notice, but some things I noticed. So I will plumb one in there. So I used the kit's starter. Get this back out of here. So I used the kit starter and I drilled out the Bendix there, and I put I'm going to wire my battery too, so I got the positive lead here. So I got a positive lead here. I got my hose and I got my harness for my coil packs, and my coil packs are all wired to the spark plugs. Knocked one spark plug wire off, so I got to re-glue that. So that's most detail I've done to an engine yet. It was a lot of fun. Okay, so then fitment wise, I had an issue with you know, the original radiator that came with the kit. First of all, it has a fan shroud because it's vintage 1969, which would have had a fan attached to the water pump on the front of the block, or in front of the water pump, which, you know, if you're going to do a brand new 572, it's going to have an electric fan. But once again, Model Maker's Workshop had me covered here. They sell these radiators and electric fans. So the radiator comes separate, and then the electric fan assembly comes separate. And that does two things. One, it looks more authentic and it looks really cool. But two, it helps with clearance. He also sent me some batteries. but I'm going to go, in this case, I'm going to go ahead and use the battery that came with the kit. And I'm going to be wiring my first battery. Now the top of this has little leads already that are just molded in. So I'm going to paint one red and one's already black. And I'll be detailing out that battery. But I drilled the sides here. So I'll be able to continue on where those leads are. And, you know, I'll just stick this in and put glue inside the battery there, and that'll hold my wire. But I'll have the black one going to the alternator and the red one going down to the starter. I've got to repaint all this stuff yet. Okay. Also, I had to modify the firewall because that block is so big that the back of the heads was hitting the power brake booster. So I had to shave the booster all the way off. And I haven't tried to fit since then, but I just put, it's going to have manual brakes here. So I put just the brake reservoir back in the firewall there. And of course I got to paint that again too. But I still have to test fit this. I'm afraid the engine's going to be really tight over here. Worst case scenario, I may have to cut that out and move it over a little bit. Okay, then the wheels and tires really sit funky on the car. So for the front wheels, I just took a piece of 1/8 inch plastic styrene rod, and I don't know, they're sticking out maybe a 1/2 inch to 5/8 from the hub there. Glued that in there. Painted these gloss black, by the way. And so I cut off the original hubs in the chassis. And these are actually, I drilled holes in the side here of the suspension, and these are going to fit in there like so. And it's going to look really good with the body. So I still have to file clean and re-prime all this stuff. The back tires, I have to still work on that. I'm going to have to shave down this area right here a little bit because that kicks the tire kind of crooked, as you can see. And the rear end, the differential, I'm going to have to modify as well. It's supposed to sit just like this, but I got to move it forward about 1/4 of an inch. So I have to figure this out. I'm either going to cut my springs and move them forward, or just move the whole thing forward and re-glue it and reattach them back here, because the wheels were off-centered. They were too far back with the oversized wheels. So I'm going to have to move that differential slightly forward. That's one option. The other option is to cut off the little nub that goes into the wheel back and glue or pin a piece of styrene offset on there. So I haven't figured that out yet. We'll take a look once I get it all assembled. So let me mock this up a little bit, and I'll show you how that engine's fitting in there. I'll be right back. All right, so I got the engine back in there and mocked up. Very tight fit, very tight fit. That brake master cylinder reservoir, I did have to pull that out. I'm gonna have to re-drill a hole and get it over to the side further. Be hugging the side of the fender well there a little bit. Things are so tight. So not only did I modify all those areas, but I even had to sand down the tip of the hood, or the bottom of the hood a little bit too, right where the top of the blower is. It's still going to be extremely tight fit. I'm going to have to really shove this engine down here and glue it really good to get the hood to shut, but it shuts, see? So that was a major chore. I mean, that was far from fitting. But I think it's going to look good. I don't have the radiator support and everything in there, but I know that's going to fit now. I got to glue that to the chassis, but I want to paint first, so that'll go out in the front. It'll be a tight fit, though. The air cleaner is going to be right there at the radiator. Okay, so then the wheels. So I ended up cutting off the hubs that belong there. I'm still going to put the control arms in there, but re-drilled get this in here a little bit. I wanted them to sit like that, so nice and low there. And then the rear, like I said, I still have to work on it a little bit. But that's kind of what I'm going for. I like that blacked out look. I think I said it before, but you know, in my era, everything was chrome. And, you know, most of you guys too, I think. But, you know, the blackout look has its place. And this is definitely a car that was calling out for it. So I think that's going to look pretty good. I'll get this on the desk here. And then I'll take the camera off the stand and give you a nice little side shot here of what that's going to look like stance-wise. Okay, so here's a look at the stance. I still have to hog out a little bit of that back there because the wheels kicked out a little bit in the front to the outside. So I have to grind on that frame a little bit. And like I said, I'll have to move that differential forward a little bit. But I like the stance. I like the way it looks. It's got a rake on it a little bit. I think that engine's going to look pretty super in there, especially all detailed out with the wires. Unfortunately, the spark plug wires and stuff, the coil packs, they barely show. Now, if I put this up on a mirror stand, you can see them from the bottom too. But all right, so that is my current update, and I think my next one will be the reveal. Dig that color shift paint too, huh? Can't wait to get this outside. It's gonna look pretty good. And then on the interior, once again, this is just a Kaleido gloss black primer. So I'm gonna have to use some dull coat in here to take the shine away a little bit. But modifications in here are gonna be these aftermarket seats from Model Maker's Workshop. I've already got them primed as well. So those will sit. I have a little bit of tacky on there because from what I was painting it. But I think they'll go in there real nice, like so. Probably going to use aftermarket shifter. Haven't decided yet, but might be using one of those. And the rest of it will just be detailed out real nice. No other aftermarket parts that I'm thinking of right now. And then for the wheels, I mentioned that earlier, but I've also got these brake discs that I had in a drawer. So I'm going to detail those out, paint the caliper red, and those will be installed. I think they'll look real nice behind that wheel. A little bit oversized, but I think I can make them fit. Well, anyways, that was a short update on how I'm doing with the USACC build. A lot of fun. A lot more work than I thought it was going to be fitting the aftermarket parts in. But then again, a big 572 into a Camaro. You know, I think anybody who's doing that, even on a one-on-one car, has to do some heavy modification. So I'm hoping on some of the other kits there that the engine compartments are a little bit bigger. So anyways, that's that for that one. Now, I please, somebody comment below about the USACC rules, because I pretty much guessed that the reveal should be held in March, but I can't find the rules anywhere. And even when they announced the build and everything, I even posted on Luca C's Facebook page asking if anybody could clarify that. Nobody's come through. You know, are we supposed to hold the reveal off until March 15th, 2026? Or if you build it early, can you do your reveal early? So let me know, comment below, you know. So anyways, my next build, I'm working on it already. So this will be coming up. It's the 1932 Ford two-door. And I've already done the paint job video on this one with the Kaleido acrylic, water-based acrylic. So this will be coming up. Stay tuned. It'll be out probably within a week or so. So thanks for watching, folks, and we'll see you next time. Thanks.